What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, and we're just going to sit back and have a lazy Sunday news and notes, news and tidbits type of vid. Don't have Jake with me today because I didn't know that I was going to be doing this vid today, but I do need to get back into the practice of doing some videos on my own so that not every time I come up here on my own, I can start off by saying, oh, well, this is why I really need a co-host. Kind of need to get back into practice, don't I? But everything on here that I'm going to talk about today is super obvious, especially the first story from SmackDown that we're going to talk about in a second, but something I want to address right off the top of my head, partially because I'm going to All Out and partially because, you know, the tribalism is at its peak right now, and it will be for the next 2 weeks, and high on everybody's, I was high on everybody's bullet list, everybody's bullet point is the counter-programming and rah, and I wanted to take a look at it from a different point of view because I know that WWE and AEW are looked at differently. Oh, AEW is the small little company that could, even though it's just another company run by another rich guy filled with a lot of great talent. But the accusation obviously is counter-programming because how dare there be two shows on the same day and all that type of thing, right? It's interesting because repeatedly what people refuse to believe, what people refuse to accept, is the fact that AEW started all this. Not only because they came out 6 years ago and made their entire identity, come watch us, we're good because we're not WWE, but they started the counter-programming train. They put a pay-per-view up against some Evolve pay-per-view that WWE offered platform time to because that was seen as such an egregious thing and whatever, and they've moved Dynamite occasionally to counter NXT on a Tuesday, which is fine. TV networks have to do something, you know, needs must and all that kind of thing. Collision moves every now and then, and when it moves now to Thursdays, which is where TNA is, and TNA conveniently are the ones that are actually buddy-buddy with WWE, and you can say maybe ifs and buts, candy and nuts, you know, it just happened to be like that. But let's go back to the very beginning. Let's go back to day one. Because as we can say, from a large point of view, I know that they did one NXT pay-per-view that ran up against an AEW pay-per-view, but it was like different times of the day, different cities, not really counter-programming. And then they did their big Atlanta weekend with Saturday night's main event and the NXT show, and Evolve the next day. Evolution the next day, which was a developmental show, and not even a pay-per-view in Saturday night's main event, and a pay-per-view the next day, the next calendar day, with only half the roster, and that had them all worried. And now they're worried, and they're shuffling things all over the place with WrestlePalooza and All Out. We talked about this a lot in the last episode of The State of Wrestling with myself and Jake. It's an interesting point of view for me to come from, because I am looking forward to WrestlePalooza and going to All Out because, yes, I'm going to an AEW show. It's wrestling in my town. We've covered this. So I'm coming at the WrestlePalooza All Out weekend from a very unique perspective. I'm going to the number 2 show and then going home and catching up on the number 1 show. And that's my perspective. That's not my point of view. That's not my... that's just the way it is. If you think that AEW is... There might be somebody... I don't even know where the hell WrestlePalooza is. I didn't write it down. But there may be somebody in that city that would rather watch AEW, but WWE is the one in their town, and they would also have a very, very interesting perspective on all of this. But it's all coming to a head. It's the first, here's everything AEW has to offer versus here's everything that AEW has to offer. Not like in the beginning, where they targeted NXT for 2 reasons. They thought it would be the weakest show, and it was on the WWE Network at the time, or at least so they thought. WWE Network had just launched. The most popular thing on it was NXT, because the main roster of WWE was crap at the time, and those of us on the WWE side of the fence can admit that. Yay. SummerSlam might suck, but at least we'll have TakeOver. Rumble might suck, but at least we'll have TakeOver. Mania might suck, but at least we'll have TakeOver. It was that era. So it was the smallest thing. It was the smallest part of WWE, but it was also the most popular at the time. It was also the highest in quality, if you want my personal opinion. And it was sort of the reason reason people were getting the WWE Network. So let's take out the WWE Network at its knees. That's a more vindictive counterpoint than simply, okay, we've got 2 pay-per-views on the same day. But I'll go back. If you want to say that WWE now, for the 3rd time, doing a little bit of counter-programming is bad because they did the NXT show, then they did the big Atlanta weekend, and now they've got WrestlePalooza. That's 3. 3 is terrible, isn't it? If you're an AEW fan, 3 is terrible. 1 is bad. 2 is worse. 3 is, oh, we can't stand for that. There's the gif of Tony Khan. I'm not going to fucking stand for it. I'm not fucking leaving! He's doing the thing from the movie that I can't remember because I suck at references tonight, apparently. That's 3, right? But if we want to look at some facts for a second, Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019 was the very first episode of AEW Dynamite. AEW arrived on our screens. For myself, it's TSN. For you guys in the States, it's wherever, and wherever else you are in the world, it's wherever. But October 2nd, the world changed. They're here to bring wrestling back, I guess, with Jack Swagger and a couple of other things. October 2nd, 2019. The last scheduled Wednesday night episode of NXT was April 7th, 2021. The Wednesday Night Wars died on April 7th, 2021. Now, if you want to do your quick math, that's 553 days. That's 79 weeks. 79 weeks means 79 Wednesdays, means 79 Wednesday Night Wars, means 79 times AEW counter-programmed WWE. So, if 3 is bad, let them have 76 more times, and then they will have met the threshold of counter-programming that AEW started the ball rolling with. That's all. Thank you for coming to Not Quite Steiner Math with your buddy, your pal, Spaz Phoenix. Now, let's switch over to what everybody's talking about, the big return on SmackDown. No, it's not Brock Lesnar. Obviously, it's AJ Lee. This was fucking fantastic. Jake and I talked about it on Thursday before it happened. Now I'm going to talk to you about it after it happened. Really weird the way they pulled this off as well. Rollins came out, but he was out in the balcony to introduce his hot, sexy Irish wife, who came down to the ring, cut a promo, shit all over Chicago, shit all over AJ Lee without saying her name. Just, why you dopes, cheering for somebody that clearly doesn't work here anymore. Punk came out, we're not going to be turning down teams of Chicago sports teams and whatnot. You're not going to, shit on my town, in my town, while I'm standing here in front of you in my town. And if these people want to chant for AJ Lee, they can chant for AJ Lee. And then he did what they have to do, because WWE's not going to do the intergender wrestling, which I wish they would. I wish they would just try it. The Baron Corbin-Becky Lynch spot from ages ago says people will respond to it. But instead he leaned the other way and just proved that he'd been paying attention to the internet. Do you think I need to deal with you myself? Do you think I can't get one of my sisters here in Chicago to deal with you? And then Becky obviously pointed out somebody in the crowd. Do you think I can't make a call to the Eradicator, Becky Lynch? Not Becky Lynch, Bailey. Do you think Rhea Ripley is the Eradicator. I can speak, I swear. Do you think I can't call the Eradicator, Rhea Ripley, out here to come take care of you? Do you think I can't make a call to my buddy Bailey? Now, the funny thing about that is, if you remember, before he came back to WWE and he visited Raw that one night before Vince got them to kick him out, he was there to visit Bailey. And that's funny, and it's a thread that you can pull on that people either know about or don't know about. I don't know why people got so upset about it. I was just there to visit a friend and maybe get some catering, was the line he said on the Ariel Helwani podcast. But he knows that people have been speculating. It's like, oh, we think it's going to be AJ Lee, but what if it's Rhea? Because they teased that on Raw. What if it's Bailey? Because Bailey's been going through some kind of transformation on Raw. But he sort of assuaged that all to one side. He, obviously called out, said it could be one of my sisters here in Chicago. Got the shit slapped out of his face again by Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch playing this character, and I don't like the gender identity politics stuff most of the time, but Becky is really leaning into this. She has to, in her own mind as a bad guy, acknowledge that the guy in front of her is a good guy because she can slap him and he won't do anything about it. But he steps out of the ring, he goes like he's going to walk away like he was going to do on Raw. The Raw segment, I want to go back and watch the Raw promo segment before and this one back to back, because he walks out again. He says, you and me and everybody here in Chicago knows that I'm never going to put my hands on a lady. Because I don't have to, gladly I've got somebody to do it for me. And there's a long-ass pause before AJ Lee's music hits. Now, cheap plug, those of you out there that have been listening to me for a long time know that I put over our friends at the Wrestling for Life Network. One thing that's great about watching the guys over at the Wrestling for Life Network is it also introduced me to the Geek Box. Go follow the Geek Box on YouTube. He does these fan reaction collaborations. You get like Wheezy Blonde in there and Denise Salcedo and the guys from Wrestling for Life and Cultaholic, and he basically compiles all these reaction clips into, hey, here's everybody reacting to Brock Lesnar coming back, and everybody goes, oh no, Brock Lesnar's coming back. Here's everybody reacting to CM Punk coming back. Oh, fucking A, CM Punk is back. And so he does tremendous work, and his podcast is pretty kick-ass as well, so go check him out. Tell him that Spaz sent you. I'm sure he'll love that. But the reaction for this was unreal. The fact that she milked every bit of it. She sort of did a really slow-mo skip to the... She looks incredible. I don't just want to sound like a gooner. I don't want to sound like, hey, here's a dude watching a chick on a wrestling show. But Jesus Christ, she looks fantastic. And I mean that in like, she looks like she's cut out of stone. She looks like she's ready to cut anybody's head off. Does a very slow-mo skip down to the ring. Finally gets in the ring. Does a pose in the ring while Becky's, reacting in the ring. Seth Rollins refusing to come to ringside from his spot safely up in the box, which goes tremendously with the fact that... Punk's whole promo was like, I don't want to deal with you. I want to deal with your cowardly husband. I don't want to lay a hand on you. I want to lay my hands on your cowardly husband. Becky and Seth dress the same with the orange and whatnot. So skippy do all the way to the ring. She's got her old music as well, which makes for a really cool dynamic because Becky just got new music. Punk's got his classic music. AJ has his classic music. And Seth Rollins has his, let's be real, his shit Def Rebel music that he did something with and got the crowd into, because Seth Rollins' music ain't that great. The response to Seth Rollins' music is fantastic and has become something really, really cool. But finally there's the takedown, the breakdown, all this type of thing. Seth and Becky kind of fall all over each other, getting out of the ring. He throws Becky over his shoulder because she's so in shock, and then we sort of end on Punk and AJ in the ring. She jumps up into his arms, big embrace, big hug and a kiss in the middle of Chicago. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. I have to, AJ's the story, but I have to commend everybody around it in a way. Becky Lynch, and I don't think this is hyperbole, the look on her face is, for those of you long-term WWE fans, especially Mick Foley fans, if you remember the promo where Mankind was doubting himself and didn't have very much confidence, he was about to go into a street fight with Triple H, and he basically cuts a promo on the Tron, ripping his mask off, ripping his vest off. He's like, the one thing Mankind is not ready is for to fight you in a street fight or whatever they had coming up. But I think, I do have a friend. I think the guy. And then he sort of basically morphs from Mankind into Cactus Jack. It's an all-time sort of promo moment. I don't want to say this is quite on that level, but the fact that Becky Lynch sold her own version of that, seeing AJ Lee come down to the ring. Because it would be one thing, because her whole thing has been, I hate you, Punk, I hate you so much for what you've done to my husband, what you've done to my family. It would be one thing if the answer was Nikki Bella, God help us, or somebody that makes sense, somebody from her past, like a Bayley, one of her more recent rivals, like a Rhea Ripley, something that would definitely be a challenge, but something that would be okay, here's my next opponent. But somebody that would feel the same feelings that she's feeling in defense of Seth Rollins for CM Punk, for somebody who's now back, for somebody who hasn't been there in 10 years, so we don't even know what she has to offer. What kind of monster has she become in the 10 years that we haven't seen her? All of that on Becky's face was wonderful. The funny thing about this, and this is where I give Seth Rollins a bunch of credit, because Seth Rollins was trying to sell shock from the balcony. The look on his face, I don't know how they all know each other, backstage, Becky and AJ and Punk and Rollins. Rollins was selling the shock, but like, he broke a smirk a couple of times every time the camera cut back to him. So he did have a little bit of this, hey, this is pretty fucking cool. Like, I'm in the middle of this really fucking cool thing. I get to be part of this really cool fucking moment. And you could see him fighting that to play off as a surprised person who's the opponent of this person that's just been. But like, the mix of those two things. And then Punk. I don't care if you like Punk. I don't care whether you don't like Punk. It's fine. He divides opinion. He is probably one of the most controversial wrestlers still active in wrestling today. Gee, I wonder why I identify with him. But you just see him, and there's no pretense, there's no mask, there's no, oh, I'm such a badass, whatever. He's just standing at the corner of the ring, watching his wife doing her thing, and he's just beaming, and he looks happier than he's ever looked on our television screens. And that is a cool thing as well. That is a cool thing as well. What came out later on down the line, she's been away from WWE for approximately 10 years. They say, she's been gone about 10 years. The funny thing is 2 days later, we're now sitting at September 7th instead of September 5th. She came back on September 5th. She debuted, if I have this correct, if I have my dates correct, 15 years ago today as I record this. So yeah, 10 years away from WWE, but 15 years since her debut in NXT. That's pretty cool as well. Kept the music, kept the imagery, that whole like heart made out of spider webs and all that sort of imagery of what did you call it? Like the love bites mentality. I think she's still got the very, very similar merch and all that kind of thing. Just a really cool thing. And as I've said before, it was really cool to see Punk come back to wrestling in AEW. Yes, they got there first. But then it was a total second step above to see CM Punk come home after all the history that he had with WWE. Because WWE was shit to him. I'm a WWE guy, and I will say I don't blame CM Punk for leaving. The way I don't blame CM Punk for leaving AEW is the same way I don't blame him for leaving WWE all those years ago. And what's worse for AJ is Punk kind of like fucked off for his own reasons. She, later on, I think a year later, sort of quietly, they say, if you look it up now, they say she quietly left the company. I think it was right after the tag match with her and Paige and the Bellas and all that. I may have the dates wrong there. But Punk left for how he was being treated. AJ left because she wasn't being treated that great either, and she was being used as an avatar for the fans to cheer for Punk, and she just witnessed what they did to Punk, and they tried to fuck with her wedding. So, like, she almost left WWE with more on her shoulders than he did, and that's saying a lot. What else do you want to say? Big moment, main event moment. Now, it's kind of funny because the show was a really weird SmackDown. They were trying to recover, quite frankly, from the week before where the ratings for SmackDown were in the toilet. Not quite as bad as Dynamite this past week, in the 400K range. Would hate to be them, wouldn't you? But they loaded up this show. So when you consider what was on this show, the fact that she was the main event, that CM Punk was there in a supporting role for AJ Lee's moment. Becky Lynch was there in a supporting role for AJ Lee's moment. Seth Rollins was up in the balcony being a twat in support of AJ Lee's moment. And that's fucking massive. And it got the main event segment. And it was the main event segment of a show that none of them are really on, because she's making her proper return on Monday on Raw, because they're all Raw superstars, I would imagine. But it stole all the headlines on a night that was John Cena's last night in Chicago, John Cena's last night on SmackDown, full stop, on a night where John Cena and Sami Zayn ran back the match that he had with Sami Zayn as part of the John Cena US Open Challenge when Sami made his debut on the main roster and fucked up his arm raising the roof, and on a day where Lesnar, yes, technically he showed up at SummerSlam, but his return to SmackDown was this past Friday. So all those things happened, and your headline is AJ Lee. That's fucking awesome. It really, really is. And I'm sorry to say this, that doesn't happen in AEW. It doesn't. It happens for a Bryan Danielson. It happens for a Adam Cole when he debuted. It happens for many people of that stature. That would not happen for an AJ Lee. If CM Punk was still in AEW right now, and they tried to do something like this, it wouldn't be in the main event, it wouldn't be treated like this, and it wouldn't be everybody laying out to make that star look like the star, because they just don't do that for their women's division. They just don't. I'm sorry. And other than the fact that I'm a huge mark for Punk, and I've got a rejuvenated interest in the Punk-Rollins feud, as I explained in the last pod, the interesting thing immediately coming out of SmackDown is Becky and AJ, mostly because the interesting thing is AJ. And for her to be the headline, I'm going to double down on this once again, for her to be the headline, Cena's last time in Chicago, Cena's last time on SmackDown, Cena's rematch with Sami Zayn, which was awesome and took up half of the show, credit to those guys, and then Lesnar, which, whether you like him or not, is going to steal headlines, because either people are going to think it's awesome that he's there, or people are going to think it's shit that he's there, because how dare man have job. But they stole all the headlines. They stole all the amazing things. The other thing I do want to touch on, though, is there was a video that came out after the fact, and it was very, very performative, and it was very, very let's make a document. It was very, very WWE Unreal. It's part of the reason why I haven't watched Unreal. But it was in the back before she went out. It was her signing her contract. It was her and Triple H talking. And the last two things that they say, or sorry, the first two things that they say to each other after she signs the contract is she looks at him and says, "Thanks for having me." And he looks at her and says, "Well, thank you for trusting us." I don't think people realize how important it is for somebody in Triple H, I'm not saying Triple H specifically, but for somebody in Triple H's position, if it was Nick Khan, if it was Vince, if Vince was still there, I don't think you can underestimate how important it is for him to say, "Thank you for trusting us," because it's an outward, vocal acknowledgement of, "Thank you for coming back to WWE. We know we fucked you. We hope you trust that it's not going to be like that this time around." And from the track record of CM Punk so far, it hasn't been. Now, he's, in storyline, been dicked around quite a bit, but it looks like he's having a blast. He's helping the kids in NXT. I think they said he's been backstage at some of the TNA stuff. I don't know how true that is. And now he just got to be part of his wife coming back to the company after 10 years, after 15 years after her debut. So I thought it was really cool. Like, seeing her happy to be back and getting back in the groove and all that kind of thing is cool. Very, very important moment that, thanks for being here. Thank you for trusting us from Triple H is a really, really key thing that I think is going to be spoken about more as we go down the line. Now, that exact video clip was posted to social media with the caption, "Ink to paper, the calm before the storm," which goes very nicely hand in hand with a report that we got after the fact. And this was yesterday, reported by Aaron Rift and bodyslam.net and NoDQ.com collaboratively, I suppose. According to the bodyslam.net report, AJ Lee has signed a multi-year full-time contract with the WWE, and it's noted that the full-time status signals something bigger coming down the way, and that WWE is, quote, very invested in having her once again as a cornerstone of the division. That's awesome, and that's cool to get that news out there right away, because the one downside, the one sort of not so silver lining on the cloud, was the fact that it's going to be awesome to see her back, but is she just coming back for a one-off? And then she's going to go home again. Which, I said it before and I'll say it again, if she was coming back to do just this one match so that her and Punk can have one match together and then fuck off, fine. I'd be fine with that. That's her thing. You get to have your last match on your terms with your partner. You can clearly see all four of them are having a blast with this, even though, as I said, I go back to it once again, like, everybody's getting sick of the Punk Rollins thing, and the fact that I think they're leaning into that now as opposed to pretending it's not a thing is going to give it legs for a lot longer. Punk's going to have that title sooner or later, and I think AJ might take the other one, and they might be the new power couple to go against thumbnail that I put out like a week ago that said Becky and Seth are the current power couple from a gold point of view, because right now Becky is the only women's champion on Raw, and she's going to be the only women's champion on Raw until we get to the other side of WrestlePalooza with that awesome match that's going to happen between Io Sky and Stephanie Vacour for the vacant women's world title, because Jimmy Uso took a bullet for all of us and got Naomi off of our screens, which is wonderful. So, what else? The fans had their reactions. I've had my reaction. Like I say, Geekbox has collated a bunch of different reactions that I really do encourage you to go check out. But how's the business? How's the business reacting to all this? No DQ got just a couple of different reactions. Soraya's at the top of the list. Now, I said, if you're going to have AJ, you can't have her like constantly tied to Punk, because that'll get lame after a while. Throw her on SmackDown. I also said you could use her as a conduit to bring back Paige. They could be a tag team. If they were the tag team champions, they could go to NXT. They could work with TNA folks. They could do some really, really cool stuff. We don't know how long AJ's contract is, and we don't know the status of Saraya as of yet. So if you want to do like a, Cowboys Last Ride thing with the two of them together visiting as many shows as they can, that would be a nice, neat little thing. Can you tell that the next face that I want to walk through that door is Paige? No, I'm not. I'm not obvious. Not at all. But some of the reactions out there: Saraya, aka Paige, fuck, my heart is so full watching the AJ Mendez come back. Love you, sister. Go show them why you're the best in the world. Naomi did a weird thing and kept on calling her Dynamite, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to have a lot of fun with. Naomi's strange, so whatever. Roxanne Perez just put out a bunch of black hearts with the caption "Mommy's Home," which I'm sure people will be very strange about. Cora Jade, who's not even in the company anymore, I should say Elena Black, I guess, just simply saying all is right with the world. Kathy Kelly simply said, "The reason I started watching wrestling, just returned to wrestling," with a big happy tears emoji. And Bailey, big capital letters, light it the fuck up. I agree. I think it's amazing. I think it's cool that she's back. I think it's cool that apparently it's been confirmed that she's not just here for a one and done. I think it's cool that she's getting all the love. I think it's cool that she got that acknowledgement from Triple H. I think it's cool that her husband gets to stand in her corner and just be ridiculously proud for her, as he should for her. The whole thing is great. So now let's just get into some random other, who's getting pissed off about what today, because the AJ Lee thing is awesome. All the other stuff that happened on SmackDown was sort of compacted by the super long John Cena versus Sami Zayn match. The women's U.S. title match was, I think, cut a bit short. Priest and Black are continuing their feud. Black got a win over him with a fucking hell of a kick to the head. And they did some other stuff in the middle. It doesn't help. I mean, I get that they did because it was in Chicago, and yes, you can break the rules if there are any rules for something like that, because it made sense to happen in Chicago. But the fact that the main event segment was taken up by 4 Raw superstars, it's going to rub some people the wrong way. And I don't think they're wrong, I just don't care, if I'm perfectly honest with you. Kind of like some people's takes on AEW right now. And I've had some criticism, and once again I say, we've had our criticism. I've had my criticism. Me and Jake have come on here and given you some collective criticism. I've been on other chats. Like I say, go check out the Wrestling for Life guys. KJ, who goes solo now, he tolerates the entire episode of AEW Dynamite every week for our pleasure, so that we have something intelligent/entertaining to listen to. But again, you got to go back to the business. You got to go back to the boys. You got to go back to the people that are inside the beasts, because we can only talk from outside of the beast. And I'll go to a Hall of Famer. I will tip my hat and lend my ear to a Hall of Famer. WWE Hall of Famer Bully Ray says AEW is a lost product, and got a response from MJF. I guess I don't. But I'm reading the thing, and it doesn't have MJF's response. We're going to talk about MJF in a second, really, really positively, actually. But somebody asked Bully Ray what he thinks of the current state of AEW, and I think, for the most part, he gives a, how do I balance out being respectful with being honest type of answer. And the tweet is as follows: "It's unfortunate, But AEW as a product is lost. There's certainly some bright spots, being the talent, but as a company, it lacks a distinctive, definitive direction. It just is what it is. It's a company owned and operated by a fan with lots of money. TK, ... probably a good guy with a good heart, but not a booker. And all the boys, in tight air quotes, all the boys know it. And people are obviously going nuts. Bully Ray becomes a target a lot of the time. Oh, you do stuff with WWE sometimes, so you must be bought and paid for, and blah, 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 blah. He's not saying anything that's not true. He's really, really not. Tony Khan does not do anything good for Tony Khan's product. It is what it is. I am going to go back to what I said at the beginning of this pod. I'm coming from a really interesting place right now as far as judging it, as far as judging the whole counter programming, blah, 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 because I'm going to All Out. And here's the thing. I lost the page now. You guys are going to have to listen to me click for a second. That's not great listening, is it? At all, because I lost a page. Boom. And my computer is slow. And yeah. Yep. I am going to All Out in Toronto. I am. It's going to be a lot of fun. I agree. I don't like the company, because it's the company that I've been speaking about the whole time. They do a bunch of things that don't make sense. They do a lot of storylines that don't make sense. They push people that other people should be pushed. They push stories and drop them. The most recent one is, they did the retirement for Sting. And then they looked like they were going to do like a Last Outlaw, gunslinger leaving the territory thing with Jeff Jarrett. And that just fell out of nowhere. But looking at the card, and we're going to do the card. Okay, normally I don't preview AEW stuff unless it's All In What the Fuck, which has become a yearly thing for myself and Jake. But I'm going to this show, so I'm going to preview it. The women's world title match looks good. MJF and Mark Briscoe are going to beat the shit out of each other. Jon Moxley and Darby Allin are going to be in a coffin match. Now, every single creative thing that I've not liked about Jon Moxley in the past year or so is going to melt away. So yeah, when I get to the Scotiabank Arena and I see Jon Moxley and Darby Allin in a coffin match, they're going to beat the shit out of each other. It's going to be a lot of fun. Everything that I've criticized beforehand won't matter, because the stories that I'm criticizing happen on weekly TV, and I'm buying the pay-per-view. It is very much in the realm of early days NXT, where the shows were pre-taped. You could skip the shows, you could catch the takeovers, and you'd get everything you need. But Hurt Syndicate versus Ricochet and his goons, I could not give a shit less. You don't need to have a world title match on this card, because the draw on this card is Edge and Christian taking on the Revival. But that's because it's Edge and Christian and the Revival. That's got nothing to do with AEW, even though they will take the credit. It's not the worst thing in the world, what he's saying here. It's not... He's not being targeted or whatever. But it just is what it is, and Bully Ray, like anybody else, is gonna catch all the slings and arrows. I'm not even the hugest Cornette guy, but people don't hate Cornette because he's a dick. People hate Cornette because he dares to speak the truth about the Mud Show. It is what it is, and yes, as somebody who's gonna be there in 14 days, I'm gonna go enjoy the Mud Show for one night. It's fine. Moving swiftly on. Alright, so Nikki Bella's an idiot. So that's a lot of fun, I suppose. During the kickoff for Clash in Paris, Wade Barrett, the heel commentator, said heely things about the babyface combatant in a match. He did his job, but he pissed off a lady, and he's a dude in 2025. What he said, the quote is right here. I think she's fantastic, and absolutely for my money, she was the best in her era and did everything she could have possibly done. However, she's now trying to recapture former glory. When you talk about desperate, the desperate one is Nikki Bella in this situation, desperate to prove that she still has it against this new generation that have changed the game. Now, first of all, he's a heel. He's not supposed to have anything to say nice about the baby faces. Second of all, there's nothing wrong with that statement. Literally, and it would get the same grumbles and growls, I'm sure, literally, after this past Friday, somebody could say that exact same quote about AJ Lee. They say some version of it, every time Trish Stratus comes back. They say some version of it going into every John Cena match. They're starting to do it with every Randy Orton match now, which is weird. They played it up quite a bit on Sting's retirement run in AEW. They say it about Jericho a lot. A lot of people have thrown it at Natty recently as well, which is bizarre considering Natty's coming back into her own recently, not necessarily in a WWE ring. But it's really, really dumb. And then she went on her podcast and she went on this big diatribe, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's all nonsense. Talking about how we're not all robots and superheroes. We are athletes and we have feelings and whatever. And I guess I'm not sending Wade a Christmas card this year. Fuck me. And because of the stupid world we live in, Barrett had to address this like it was a real thing. Oh, I had no idea Nikki felt this way. I'd be happy to have this conversation anytime she likes. I really wish she would have brought this up when we spoke and said hi to each other on Raw rather than doing it via. That's a very good point as well, by the way. Him not even calling her out on bullshit, like, we work together, we see each other like at least every week. You had to go shit on me on your little podcast there rather than saying it to my face is an excellent point. I don't understand the avoiding claim at all, though, because that's simply not true, which I bet it's not. I mean, Wade Barrett seems like a pretty chill dude, and it's not like he needs to get over. He's not wrestling anymore. So it's very, very strange for a heel to be getting bitched at. But it is one of those situations, and I hate to make it this kind of conversation. He can't say anything. He can't say anything in his own defense because he's the dude in the situation. And that's fucking terrible. He even came out again later on, happy to report that I've smoothed everything. I don't know why I'm trying to do a half Wade Barrett accent because it's not the time for that. I've smoothed everything over with Nikki, and we had a wonderful conversation, and I'm happy to announce I'm back in the Bella Army. So here he is basically putting her over on Twitter after she just tried to bury him because she had her little fifis hurt because she doesn't know it's a work. And now, here's where the controversy comes in. Because now, he went on Twitter a few more times to say, hey, everybody, has disagreements in their workplace. I don't agree with a couple of the things that she said, but I also don't agree with some of the terrible things that people are saying about her. Well, people are saying terrible things about her because she's obnoxious and she can't wrestle, and she gave Becky Lynch a terrible match at Clash in Paris. But, he went on to sort of, again, be put in this weird position where I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure he doesn't want to see anything bad happen to anybody, but he's now in the position, because of the way the world is in 2025, that he has to defend the person that he had to defend the person that was just running him into the ground. It's like the parents of Austin Matthews defending the Anthony family. It's fucked up. It's really, really fucked up, and good people always get steamrolled in the meantime. And then, immediately, it was announced. Now, here we go. Here's where the fun part comes in. That Wade Barrett was considered inactive on the WWE commentary roster. Now, we all know, we all can put two and two together, and everybody said their piece, and, this is kind of convenient timing and whatnot. Also, the fact that Joe Tessitore and Pat McAfee are both dealing with football duties, so they won't be there anymore. So I think Michael Cole, if I understand this correctly, somebody can tell me down in the box below because I didn't clarify this part. So I think Michael Cole and Corey Graves are going to be doing both Raw and SmackDown, which means if you include NXT, Corey Graves is going to be doing 3 different shows. And he's got the AAA show coming up as well, so he's going to be a busy boy, which is awesome. But he came back out, Wade Barrett, once again to say, people are still throwing nasty things at Nikki Bella, and, I want you to know, I definitely booked some time off with WWE, and that's all this is. And he says he's got like 4 or 6 weeks that he's got vacation, apparently. Now, I really want to hope that that's true. In 4 or 6 weeks, when he returns or doesn't return, we will see whether that was the truth or whether he was once again put in a position where he had to defend somebody that fucked him over. It's really just unfortunate all the way around. Speaking of entitled idiots, we switch over to Ronda Rousey. Now, The funny thing about all of this is we're talking about two ladies that I used to not necessarily put up in the highest of heights, but I used to defend to a certain degree. I used to say in their initial run, because WWE was in a really, really horrible time at the time, people didn't like the Bellas, and they weren't great, but they weren't as bad as people made them out to be. At the time, when we had, sorry to say, more real wrestlers coming in, like your Paiges, your AJ Lees, your Charlottes, etc., I used to say, yeah, no, they're not on the top of the pile, but don't call them 2s because they're not 10s in the ring. And I stuck to that, and I think it was pretty valid. And the fact that the Give Divas a Chance hashtag happened to happen during a Nikki Bella match, having nothing to do with her, probably having everything to do with who she was in the ring with at the time, they build themselves up as we built the women's division, when in fact they had to have that match against Paige and AJ Lee to represent, no, this is what we're walking away from and this is what we're walking towards. So it's a bummer that I used to not necessarily like them, but at least defend them. I used to like Ronda Rousey. I did. I was never a UFC fan, but she came into the WWE. She had the Piper gimmick, sort of. I mean, her debut was at WrestleMania against friggin' Triple H and had Kurt Angle in her corner, and they had the Stephanie stuff, and it was really fun. You know, hit the ground running at the top. The kind of thing that people yell at WWE for doing with Logan Paul these days, and Logan Paul's better than Ronda Rousey. Logan Paul's better than Nikki Bella as well, I hate to tell you. But she's another one. And I said this before, and I'll say it again, but the Bellas and Sasha Banks and Ronda Rousey, the four of them are in this little club of, we've got a plan and we're going to stick to it. We're going to go to WWE, we're going to milk as much as we can and take credit for as much as we can while we're in WWE. And the second we're out of WWE, our next stream of monetary income will be shitting on WWE. We'll get our money from WWE, then we'll make our money shitting on WWE. And in Nikki Bella's case, rinse and repeat. Ronda Rousey, on the Lapsed Fan podcast, I don't know who the Lapsed Fan podcast is, bitched about some of the opponents that she was put with. Oh, I'm so much better than all of them, blah, blah, blah. And then she landed on Alexa Bliss. The fact that she had me fighting Alexa Bliss at all was fucking ridiculous. Do you want to know why they had me fighting against Alexa Bliss? Because she had the most merch sales at the time. Like, what the fuck is this your decision-making process? No. She's one of the most over women in that division. I mean, if you scrape the top layer off, you scrape off your Becky Lynch's, your Rhea Ripley's, your Liv Morgan's, there's the immediate next tier, and not to say top and bottom and whatever, but Alexa Bliss is on the top of the next tier. She's been famous. She's been popular. She's had songs written about her. She's been on TV. She was heavily involved in the Wyatt stuff. She was one of the ones that threw herself the most into all the Bray Wyatt lore, even when the Bray Wyatt lore was, I don't know what you would say, like calling under scrutiny, because people decided all of a sudden The Undertaker wasn't cool anymore, and they took it out on all the spooky gimmicks that came after him, which was also dumb. She went away for a long time. She started a family. She went through and was very public with a lot of medical stuff, so there's an inbuilt sympathy with the fan base as well. She's over. Ronda Rousey, other than her peak at the beginning, wasn't. The fans turned on her quickly, and she never dealt with it. So translate this, oh my god, they only put me in there with her because she sells the most merch. Why does she sell the most merch? Because she's over. And the fact that she's over is the reason you were put in a ring with her. You stupid. Not gonna say it because I don't want to get myself taken off of YouTube. Thank god there's Rumble. Like, what the fuck? What kind of decision-making process is that? And now, this is where, even in all my frustration with AEW, there's one or two names on that side of the fence that will come and actually, like, make a point that's beyond the tribal lines. And it was a response from MJF. And MJF's gonna MJF anyway, but he just kind of said it's almost like pro wrestling, like any professional sport, functions as a business. Fucking crazy, with a mind-blown emoji. Now, professional AEW bootlick and professional WWE hater Ibu, aka Backup Hangman, who is an absolute cancer on this community. Let me be perfectly clear. There's a reason people like Murray and Sidgwick lick this guy's asshole, because he's that bad. He responded to MJF saying, oh, just bury the office if you want to, but I don't see any benefit from this. And MJF says, no, you're an idiot. He doubled down. Ronda was the superior athlete. However, it was perfectly good matchmaking for the people structuring the fight card, because both wrestlers would have sold the most tickets and drawn the most ratings because they're over. The WWE haters at this point, and this, I didn't mean to make this about Ibu being a fucking idiot. Go follow him if you want to laugh. The WWE haters have gone so far down the tribal mudline that even AEW wrestlers are saying, nah, you're fucking stupid. This makes me think of, in a very, very different way, because he's very different from MJF, but the clips that went round of Kenny Omega doing, like, gaming streams, and somebody in the chat would start, like, shitting on Roman Reigns, and he's like, no, we're not going to do that here. Roman Reigns is killing it. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? This is MJF doing that in a very MJF way. But, like, WWE said, Ronda, you're over, you're a big star, we get it. Alexa Bliss is also over and also a big star. Let's make a match, let's sell some tickets. And yes, I'm sorry, because it is a business, let's sell some fucking merch. I'm sure you took a nice pretty penny off of the Roddy Piper branded Rowdy Ronda Rousey merch. So, you know, eat a dick. People go after her online for some of her personal, like, opinions on, like, world issues and whatever, and that's where I draw the line of, like, your opinion on personal world issues and whatever is an entirely different thing. She's entitled to her opinions. I don't know whether I agree with her or not, because it's irrelevant to the point that I'm trying to make. But when you come across in the wrestling community, you're on a wrestling podcast and you shit on, I'm sorry, unequivocally the A show of this genre of entertainment, people are gonna come for you. And when you do it at the expense of somebody that a good majority of the fans have adopted as one of their own, like, you're gonna get a mini CM Punk situation on your hands with this. Like, you're just an idiot. Why would they put me in there with somebody that's over? I would have loved, personally, because I watched her come up through NXT, and they never really used her properly on the main roster, I would have loved for them to get a lot more out of Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, because they came from a similar place, they came from a similar background, they knew each other, they were friends in real life. That was a really cool story that they got to do right at the end. But I'm not an idiot. Shayna Baszler is not as over as an Alexa Bliss or a Charlotte Flair or a Liv Morgan or a Rhea Ripley. She's just not. Like, that doesn't mean she's bad, but she's not. People that are making the marquee want to make a marquee that people want to look at, because that's what a marquee is supposed to do. You went in there as an outsider, and this is what I say once again. Ronda Rousey came into WWE as more of an outsider than, say, Bad Bunny, or even a Logan Paul, or, you know, we've only seen Jelly Roll once, whatever, but she came in and said, I'm going to do WWE my way, and these guys came in and have found moderate success in some cases. Like I say, Jelly Roll's had one match. Bad Bunny we haven't seen in a while. Logan Paul has integrated himself with the roster. Ronda Rousey came into the WWE and said, no, I'm going to do WWE my way. And Logan Paul was smart enough to come in, get trained, get good, integrate himself with the system, and then play off what she's doing in real life as his character. That's where all the outsider stuff comes from. And it's just, like, she's been gone for how long now? And she's still bitching because she didn't like an opponent? I hope the way that people came for Wade Barrett for doing his job and commentating from a heel perspective on Nikki Bella, and people came for him, I hope people come for her for this shit, because she's not doing her job. She's not there to be a heel putting over the babyface, etc., etc., etc. This is just, I don't know, you're bitter. The shit on WWE side of your financial plan isn't working out as well as you thought. I don't know what's going on here. But yeah, it's a weird week, and there's a lot of weird stories going on, and as I say, most of it is fueled by AEW versus WWE, but then you get stuff like this where the house of WWE is not in order, and somebody that's not even in WWE anymore just wants to make a name, wants to make a headline off of WWE. As I say, Ronda Rousey is very, very, very much taking the Bella Mercedes Moné handbook, as far as you're not there anymore, but they can still help you cause a little bit of a stir, light a little bit of a fire online. It's stupid. It's like, what are we doing? You don't want to make money, cool, fine. You can't do MMA anymore. Isn't that the thing? Isn't that the thing that they threw at CM Punk? You had to come back to WWE because MMA wouldn't have you and AEW wouldn't have you. Well, I guess nobody's having Ronda Rousey, because the only conversation she can have now is what she used to do in WWE. And that's pretty sad, considering when she first came in, I thought it was one of the coolest things going at the time. But yeah, guys, I've had quite a ramble here. There's been a couple of cuts because my audio equipment hasn't been my friend today, so thanks for sticking with me with this. Let me know what you think about all this. Obviously, top of the headline is, let me know what you think of the AJ Lee return. What do you think they're going to do after this mixed tag and after WrestlePalooza is out of the way? Where do you guys stand right now on the counter programming argument that we see from the muddy side of the line there? Do you think Bully Ray is right in his statements? Do you think the people going after Bully Ray are right? Because I don't really think they are. Nikki Bella versus Wade Barrett, because that's a thing in 2025. And tell me down in the box below. I'll listen. I'll be really quiet. I'll listen to whatever you have to say down in the box below. How stupid is Ronda Rousey? Anyways, I've been Spaz, your YWC reality check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.